Hello, fellow detectives. Welcome to Unlocked, the official podcast for all things Nancy Drew. Heads up, there will be spoilers in this episode. I'm your host, Tammy Tuckey, and this week we welcome voiceover artist Bob Heath to the show. Welcome, Bob.
Thanks for having me, Tammy.
Really?
Hi, everybody.
It is a pleasure. It's so exciting. As I state in the beginning of every episode, there are spoilers, and with Bob, we have plenty of them because of the characters he has played. So if you have not played Stay Tuned for Danger or the final scene, I would just pause the interview right now and go ahead and play those games if you can and come on right back because we're going to talk a little bit more about the character description in detail from here. But Bob, it's really exciting. You got to play two different villains in two different games. Did you know this coming in when you first came in? Did they just say, "Oh, we just want to make you the villain all the time"?
Actually, I wish they had said that. They didn't say that. I think when I booked the first one, which was many years ago, it was this. These are the characters you're going to play, and I think it was two primary characters and a few characters off on the side. If my memory serves correctly. And it was just a lot of fun. Great group of people to work with. And that's what I liked about it. And then they had me back for the second game. And again, I didn't know going in that I was going to be the villain in that game either. But it was always a lot of fun to do.
Now let's talk about your beginnings in the entertainment industry. What was one of your first acting jobs or voiceover jobs?
Well, that's a great question, because I came to this as a second career. I was in the Army for 22 years prior to that, and had done a little bit of broadcast work while I was in the Army as a broadcast officer, and more TV and radio as opposed to voiceover work. But when I retired and moved to Seattle, I'd done some theater. And somebody, I forget who it was, but someone had mentioned to me that I had a quote unquote great voice for radio. And at the time I was doing a lot of industrial work, more in front of the camera work. And I said, well, I'd be interested in giving it a shot. So I took some voiceover classes with a woman by the name of Veronica Weichel, who I really enjoyed working with, just to see if I had the chops to do it. And they helped develop my voiceover demo reel, and they produced it. They did a phenomenal job. In fact, I still use it today. And I started booking voiceover gigs, things for Microsoft, Visa, Hewlett Packard. And then I got offered the chance to audition for this gig. And I guess the rest of the time I was in Seattle, I did, like as you know, two of these games plus several others for different companies.
And the first game you worked on with Nancy Drew is Stay Tuned for Danger. That was their first game where the characters weren't drawn in an animation style. The first game was Secrets Can Kill. And this was Stay Tuned for Danger was the first game where they were digitally animated characters, which was very exciting. And it was, I think it was a great type of feel to it because it's based off of like a fake soap opera, and the main star, as most of us know, is getting death threats, and we don't know who it is exactly. And two of the characters you got to play are Dwayne Powers and Ralph Gardino, and with Stay Tuned for Danger, so you're saying when you came into these roles for Nancy Drew, they would never tell you who it was until the very, very end of the recording sessions.
Well, as I recall, now, having said that, I'm going back 15 or so years. As I recall, when I first got booked, they said, you're going to play this character and some of these additional characters. I said, all right. And I don't remember being told that, oh, by the way, this is the villain of the piece, or this is the good guy of the piece. Here are these characters, here's their background, develop a voice and go for it.
Did they show you images of the characters at all to help you with the development of the voice?
Tammy, that's a great question. I don't remember if they did or not. I don't recall seeing pictures of the characters. They may have had some. I just don't remember them.
Who was your favorite to voice between the two?
Oh, that's an excellent question. Probably Dwayne, only because once I found out he was the villain, I was able to play with it a little bit more. Add a little, and I'm not doing the voice justice because it's been, like I said, many years since I've heard it, but just adding a certain sinister sense to it, if you will. So those are always fun to play because my real personality is 180 degrees different than that. Well, and that's one of the things I like about this business when you're doing voiceover in particular is you can bring out, and in a lot of ways, it's a lot like acting in front of the camera. You can bring out different aspects of your personality, or you can go with types of personalities that aren't necessarily yours, embellish upon them, and try to bring that character to life.
Did you get to meet any of the cast members during the recording sessions or afterwards?
I don't think so. Not that I remember. As I think I shared with you, that was one of the first animation projects I did. And it always has stayed with me as a very special time.
And before we talked, I kind of explained that Dwayne does make a reappearance in Ransom of the Seven Seas. You said that you relocated and you are not in Seattle anymore, which is where they mostly hire the actors to voice these characters. They cast another individual who I think did a very good job, too. So if Dwayne were to come back, which there's always been hints and rumors about that, would you be interested in reprising your role?
So. I'd be interested in working with these folks anytime. I really, like I said, I had a great experience working with them, and they were always good to me. And I've got studio. I don't have an in-home studio because I'm not that technically proficient. And if they wanted me to voice Dwayne or Ralph or whoever, I'd be more than happy to.
We also have the final scene, which is another really different, exciting game. I was kind of watching it last night. There's a lot of players who post their own versions of playing the game. You voice Joseph Hughes and Sergeant Ramsey. And that Sergeant Ramsey is only a character via phone, so you're never going to get a physical representation of him. So again, it relies on the voice. It relies on the process of how you develop the character with your voice.
Exactly.
And then we have Joseph, and I think Joseph is probably one of the saddest villains in the Nancy Drew series, because we come to find out at the end he has found out that his brother has died, so their whole plan of starting their own theater or their own business is gone, and he doesn't have anybody else in his life, and so he really stoops to the lowest of the lows and kidnaps Nancy's friend. When did you find out about that specific part while doing the recordings?
Well, as I recall, when we did the second game, I think it was like a year to a year and a half after the first. They just called and said, "Would you like to come in and work with us?" I said, "Sure," in the New York Minute. So I came into their studio and went from there.
He's slowly going crazy, but it's not evident in his tone, in his voice. And I thought that was so subtle and enjoyable as a player, because it really creeps you out.
Well, I think what we were trying to do there was to show that the character was maintaining control outwardly, but inside, falling apart.
It's such a great character. I really enjoyed Joseph. And do you have any particular favorite character between both games now that you really enjoyed voicing?
Well, that's an excellent question, because I enjoyed voicing all of them. I guess if I had to pick one, it would probably be the Joseph Hughes. I'm going to say he had the most going for him in terms of from a character perspective. He gave me more to work with. And if an actor has a good foundation to work from, he can really do a lot more with that character. The strength of these games back when I first did them was the writing. The writing to me was very sound. But also at the same token, they would give me the liberty that if I felt I wanted to phrase something a little differently and keeping it in the same context, I could do that. The biggest problem that an actor has with a written script, if the script has not been written to be spoken, it makes it very difficult. In these scripts, they were written to be spoken. And what I mean by that is a lot of folks write scripts thinking they sound great, but they never read them out loud. So if they don't read them out loud, they don't know if they sound real or not.
You need to get a good pacing going with
Correct.
that.
You need to get a good pacing and be able to use phrases and terminology that the actor's more comfortable with the spoken word, and that makes it more real.
There's been plenty that has happened since the final scene and Stay Tuned for Danger. Can you talk a little bit about, what you've been up to since then?
Sure. Since moving back to the Philadelphia area, I've still been active in film and stage and voiceover work. Worked in a couple of different TV series, a show called Political Animals, which was on the USA Network with Sigourney Weaver, where I played Admiral Taft, commander of the Pacific Fleet, in a couple of episodes. Had an episode of Veep, where I played the MC of the Vic Allen dinner. House of Cards, a couple of voiceover projects, more voiceover industrials than animation, although I am doing voices on a TV series that airs every Saturday on the Fox Business Channel called The Sensibles, which is a small cartoon that's teaching young kids about money.
Is any of your material online on a website that our listeners can go ahead and feature?
All three of my voiceover demos are online. They can go to a site called DragonukConnects.com, and that's DragonukConnects, DragonukConnects.com. And they can put a backslash and then my name, and it should go right to the website.
Perfect. I'll put it in the show notes below as well, so our listeners can go ahead and just click and they can listen to some of your current voiceover tracks. Before we end our interview, do you have any advice? I know there's a lot of individuals out there who would really like to take a shot at being in the voiceover business. Do you have any advice for those
Sure.
individuals?
One thing everybody needs to keep in mind is voiceover work it's great work if you can get it. It's not an easy field to break into. You got to continue to plug, but the key is having a solid voiceover demo. And I have three. I have a voiceover demo for narration, for commercials, and for character voices. You've got to be able to show your range. And if you can't put one of those together, you're not going to get into voiceover work, because that is the calling card for voiceovers, having a good, solid demo. Once you get that demo made, submit it, find some recording studios that are doing a lot of work, submit your voiceover demo to them, or if you have an agent, have your agent submit it, but keep plugging away, keep practicing, read cold copy, read commercial copy, read character voice copy, and you can download that offline. Keep working your instrument and staying current. I mean, I've booked some jobs just meeting somebody at a party. The guy said, "Oh, you do voiceover work?" I said, "Yeah, I do." He said, "What do you do?" And I told him. He said, "We're putting a project together. Would you be interested in?" I said, "Yeah, sure."
Well, thank you so much for coming on the show, Bob. We love to hate you in these games. In the most nicest way of saying it.
Like I said, I'm very flattered that you called.
So I cannot thank you enough for coming on the show. And if we can close out our interview with one more question, if you could sum up your experience working for Her Interactive and being a part of these Nancy Drew games in one specific word, what would it be?
Phenomenal.